May 1st, 2023, Colombian Amazon. A Cessna is dropping out of the sky, and the man flying it is screaming that maybe no one will reach in time. The engine is dead. Below him there is nothing, just a green ocean 100 feet tall of jungle trees, stretching past the horizon in every direction. The plane goes in nose first, and after the impact, there is only silence. The bent metal, the smell of fuel in the leaves. 3 adults in that wreck are dead or dying. And then, from somewhere inside the broken fuselage, a sound that should not be possible. A baby is crying. A 13-year-old girl drags herself toward that cry. Her name is Leslie. Around her are her 2 younger siblings and her gravely hurt mother, and a 1-year-old who cannot walk, cannot speak, cannot eat what the jungle offers, and cannot survive a single night out here alone. No adult is coming to save them. The nearest help is days away and doesn't even know where to look. Every system built to protect these children has just failed at 30,000 feet. She is all that's left. What stands between that infant and the deadliest jungle on Earth is a child who isn't old enough for high school. And what did a nation finally find, 40 days later, that no one was prepared to believe? Start with the math, because the math is merciless. 7 people boarded that flight from Araraquara, bound for San Jose del Guaviare, a routine hop across a roadless stretch of Amazon where small planes are the only buses. When the engine quit and the aircraft slammed into the trees of Caquetá, it pancaked down through the canopy and buried its nose in the floor of the rainforest. 3 adults die. The pilot, an indigenous leader traveling with them, and, not at once, the children's mother, Magdalena. 4 children live. Leslie is 13. Her sister Solange is 9. Their brother Tien is 4. And the baby, Christine, is 11 months old, still on formula, still carried, and still utterly dependent on someone older keeping her warm and fed. Look at the place this happened. This is not a forest you walk out of. The Colombian Amazon here is a triple canopy jungle so dense that sunlight barely reaches the ground at noon. It rains nearly every day. It holds jaguars, snakes, biting insects in clouds, rivers that rise without warning. Grown soldiers, the best trackers in the country, will soon get lost in it. And it has just swallowed 4 children whole. But the jungle made one mistake. It assumed the oldest survivor was helpless. She isn't. Leslie is Huitoto, one of the indigenous peoples of this region, and she was raised the way her people have survived this forest for centuries. She knows which fruits feed you and which ones kill you. She knows that water moves toward rivers and rivers move toward people. She knows how to listen to a jungle instead of panicking in it. Everything the rescuers will later mistake for luck, she already carries in her head. For the first few days, her mother clings to life inside the wreck. Reports from the family say Magdalena survived perhaps 4 days, pinned and fading, and that in those final hours she gave her oldest daughter the only instruction that mattered. Get out of here. Take your brothers and sister. Live. It is the cruelest inheritance a parent can hand a child. Not money, not advice. A life sentence of responsibility for 3 other lives, delivered by a dying woman to a 13-year-old in the dark. Magdalena is gone, and the last adult in the world goes quiet. Leslie does not fall apart. She works. She pulls the baby from the wreckage. She scavenges what the crash left intact. A bag of cassava flour, the baby's formula, a flashlight, a few small things, the difference between dying tonight and dying next week. She wraps Kristen against her own body, and now she faces the first decision that will define everything. Every survival instinct says stay by the wreck, because that bright scar of torn metal is the one thing a search party could spot from the air. But staying means sitting beside her dead mother in a place with nothing to eat, waiting for help that may never come. Think about the weight of that call for a second. She is 13. She has just lost her mother. She is holding a baby and standing over the bodies of the only adults in her world. And the choice in front of her is the kind that breaks experienced soldiers, the safe-looking option that quietly kills you, or the terrifying option that might save you. Stay, and you are visible but starving. Leave, and you are fed but invisible. There is no good answer. There is only the least bad one. She makes her choice. She straps the baby to her chest, takes her siblings by the hand, and walks away from the wreckage into the trees. And notice who she is now responsible for. Selene, 9, old enough to walk but young enough to be terrified. Tien, 4, barely past toddling, the age where a long afternoon at a shopping mall is exhausting, now expected to march through rainforest. And Kristen, the baby, who cannot do anything but be carried and be kept alive. 3 dependents, one of them an infant, 0 adults. That is the team that is about to take on one of the most hostile environments on the planet. The canopy closes behind them like a door. And in that single step, without meaning to, 4 children have just made themselves almost impossible to find. Now the clock starts. And the clock has a face. An 11-month-old who cannot tell you she's hungry, only screams at it. This is where the story stops being about a crash and starts being about a skill set. Because what Leslie does over the following days is not survival by accident. It is survival by knowledge, the kind of knowledge no satellite carries. She finds water. Where a lost adult might wander in circles until they collapse, she moves towards sound and slope until she reaches a stream, and she keeps the children near it because water is both drink and direction. She finds food the careful way. In a jungle where the wrong handful of seeds is a death sentence, she chooses the fruits her grandmother's lessons marked as safe, huansoco, milpeso, the things her people eat, and she steers the little ones away from everything else. When you don't know which berry stops a heart, you starve. She knew. So they ate. She builds shelter, branches and leaves lashed into something that turns the worst of the rain. At night, when the jungle floor belongs to snakes and things with teeth, she tucks the younger ones into the hollows of fallen trees and stands watch over a baby in the black. And then there is the formula. It runs out, as it always would. A 1-year-old needs milk, and there is no milk in the Amazon. So Leslie does the only thing left. She keeps Kristen alive on water and mashed fruit and whatever her own arms can carry. Hour after hour, day after day, a child improvising motherhood with no manual and no margin. Watch how the days actually go, because the routine is the heroism. Morning is for moving and gathering while there is light. She crushes cassava flour into something the little ones can swallow. She splits fruit 4 ways and gives the baby the softest of it, working it into a paste because Kristen has almost no teeth and no patience. She watches Tien, 4 years old and fading fast, and she carries him when his legs give out, which means at times she is carrying a toddler and an infant at once through mud that pulls the shoes off your feet. She keeps Selene close, gives her small jobs because a scared 9-year-old with a task is a 9-year-old who keeps it together, and the nights are the enemy. When the light goes, the jungle floor becomes a place you do not want to be lying on. So she finds the hollow of a fallen trunk, packs the younger ones inside it like a den, and puts her own body between them and the dark. Imagine trying to sleep while listening to the things that hunt at night, with a baby on your chest, knowing that if you fail, no one corrects the mistake. There is no second adult to take the watch. The watch is hers, every night, for weeks. Sit with what that actually means. Most of us, dropped into that jungle with a full backpack and a map, would not last a week. She did it with 3 kids hanging off her, one of them an infant, and she kept all 4 breathing. If you've ever wondered what real toughness looks like, forget the action movies. It looks like a soaked 13-year-old rationing fruit in the dark, so a baby she refuses to abandon can have one more morning. But here is the trap inside her own competence. Leslie keeps them moving. She is trying to find help, trying to reach the river, trying to walk toward people. And as she goes, she leaves small marks behind her, a tiny footprint in mud, a discarded diaper, a hair tie, breadcrumbs for anyone who might be hunting for them. It is exactly the right instinct. It is also the thing that buries them deeper. Every mile she covers takes them further from the wreck, deeper into the green, and turns 4 stationary children into a moving target drifting through 40 million trees. So picture two forces now, far apart, neither knowing where the other is. 4 children walking, silent, deeper into the jungle. And finally, a country waking up to the fact that they might still be alive. Because miles away, the wreckage has been found. Soldiers reach the downed plane and discover 3 dead adults, and no children. Just small footprints leading away into the trees. And the most powerful realization in the entire story lands on a nation at once. Somewhere out there, kids are alive and walking. The race begins, but the children have a head start measured in days, and they're moving in the one direction no one expects. They called it Operación Esperanza, Operation Hope, and for weeks it was the largest, strangest search the Colombian jungle had ever seen. Picture the scale: around 150 soldiers, roughly 70 indigenous volunteers, trackers who knew this forest the way Leslie did, walking shoulder to shoulder with special forces. Helicopters beating over a canopy so thick that a man standing on the ground was invisible from 50 feet up. Rain that grounded aircraft and erased trails within hours. And a search box that, even narrowed, was still miles of triple canopy wilderness with a ceiling 130 feet over their heads. The problem was never effort. It was a connection. The searchers could flood the jungle with people and still walk straight past 4 small children hidden under leaves. So they tried to talk to them. They dropped flyers, thousands of them, printed in Spanish and in Huitoto, with one message in pictures and words a child could read: "Stop walking. Stay where you are. We are coming." They dropped survival kits, food, and whistles, hoping a kit would land where a child could find it. They cut clearings and lit them so a lost girl might see something other than green. And then they did the thing that still gives people chills. They brought in the children's grandmother, recorded her voice speaking to them in their own language, telling them to stop moving, telling them to stay, telling them they were loved and the search was real. And they played that recording from loudspeakers slung under helicopters, a grandmother's voice pouring down through 100 feet of leaves into a jungle, calling 4 children by name. Imagine being on that helicopter. Imagine being Leslie somewhere below and not hearing it, or hearing it and not being able to tell which direction it came from in a place where sound bounces off 10,000 trunks. And slowly, the proof started coming back. The searchers found a baby's bottle, a half-eaten piece of fruit, fresh, a diaper, a child's small footprint pressed into the mud, a makeshift shelter of branches, a pair of scissors, a hair tie. And here is something worth holding on to, because the search itself is a kind of proof. A modern state poured soldiers, aircraft, dogs, and weeks of effort into finding 4 children in the trees, and the most effective people in that whole machine were the indigenous trackers who read the forest the same way Leslie did. The army flew the helicopters, but it was the knowledge of her own people, on the ground and in her head, that kept catching the trail. If stories like this one are why you're here, the kind the headlines forget within a month, this is the channel that keeps digging them up, and the button below is how you make sure the next one finds you. They were alive. They were close. The whole country could feel it. And that is exactly when hope turned into torture, because the children kept drifting. They couldn't hear the messages or couldn't trust them, and they kept walking, and the search kept arriving at places the children had just left. Later, the searchers would come to believe the most agonizing fact of the entire operation, that at one point they had passed within about 100 meters of the children, a single soccer field away, and never knew it. 100 meters. Weeks into the jungle, with a baby who could not last forever. Let that number sit on you, because it is the cruelest distance in the entire story. Not 100 miles, not a wrong region. 100 meters, the length of a soccer field, between the largest search the country could mount and 4 children it was desperate to save. They were never really lost to the world. They were lost by an arm's reach, again and again, in a place where an arm's reach is the same as the other side of the planet. And then one of the dogs caught it. A scent, sharp and fresh, the smell of children. A Belgian Malinois named Wilson, trained for exactly this, locked onto the trail and did what he was bred to do. He ran. He tore off through the undergrowth, faster than any human could follow, the best lead the search had ever had, sprinting straight toward 4 children and straight out of his handler's reach. The whole operation held its breath. Their best hope had just slipped its leash and vanished into the green. What happens next is 2 gut punches in a row, and you need both to understand how dark this got before the light. The first blow comes dressed as a miracle. With clues piling up and the search red hot, the word detonates across Colombia. The children have been found alive. The president himself announces it. For one night, a grieving country lets itself celebrate. Parents hug their own kids a little tighter, headlines glow, the impossible has happened. And then, roughly a day later, it is taken back. The report was wrong. The information could not be confirmed. The children were not found. They were still out there, still lost, still walking through the rain. The president deletes his own message. A nation that had just exhaled has the air punched back out of it, and the family is handed the worst whiplash imaginable, told their children are saved, and then told, "No, we were mistaken, keep praying." Think about what that does to hope. It would have been easier to never have heard the good news at all. Instead, the whole country learns that in this jungle, even certainty is a lie, and the children sink back into the green as if the celebration had never happened. And think about the family at the center of that whiplash. For one night, they are told the unimaginable, that their children beat the impossible, that they can stop bracing for a funeral. They let themselves feel it. They let themselves believe. And then a day later, a hand reaches in and takes it back, and they are asked to go back to not knowing, to keep waiting, to keep hoping in a thing that has just proven it can be wrong. You can lose a person once. This family was made to lose them, get them back, and lose them again, all without a single confirmed fact changing on the ground. The cruelty of that is not the jungle's. The jungle is just indifferent. This was the special agony of a search so desperate to deliver good news that it briefly delivered the wrong news, and 4 children kept walking through the rain the entire time, never knowing they had been found and lost on television. Then comes the second blow, and this one breaks your heart in a different way. Wilson, the dog who ran ahead, the search's best lead, did something the soldiers only pieced together later from the children themselves. He found them. The Malinois reached the 4 children in the depths of the jungle and, by their account, stayed with them, a companion in the dark, a warm living thing beside 4 kids who had buried their mother and walked for weeks. For a few days, a lost dog and 4 lost children kept each other company under the canopy. Stop and feel that image, because it is almost too much. 4 children who had watched their mother die and walked for weeks through the dark, and one night a dog finds them, and for a few days they are not alone. A baby, a 4-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a soldier's dog, huddled together in the deadliest jungle on earth, keeping each other warm. It is the one moment of mercy in the middle of the nightmare. And then Wilson was gone. The same jungle that had hidden the children swallowed the dog. He wandered off, or got lost, or simply could not find his way back, and the search that sent him in to save them now lost him too. Soldiers who had come to rescue children found themselves searching for their own dog, calling his name into the trees, and getting nothing back. So take the full picture of this moment, because this is the bottom. Weeks deep. A baby somewhere in that canopy who turned 1 year old while lost, with no milk and no doctor. A search that has already falsely declared victory and shattered the family's hope. The best tool they had, gone. Soldiers exhausted, supplies stretched, belief running out. There were people, good people, beginning to quietly prepare for the worst. And 4 children, still alive, still moving, with a 13-year-old still refusing to let the smallest one go. Near what would prove to be the very end, a team of soldiers and indigenous searchers picked up one more fresh trace, the sign of a child's passage, and followed it into yet another patch of jungle. They did not know whether they were tracking the living or the dead. June 9th, 2023, 40 days after the plane went down. A group of indigenous Muri searchers, moving with the soldiers through a small clearing in the Kakata jungle, stop. Ahead of them, in the green, there is movement that is not an animal and not the wind. There are 4 children. For a heartbeat, Nobody trusts their own eyes. The search has been fooled before, by false reports and by a jungle that turns shadows into shapes. The country was told once already that they were found, and it was a lie. So the searchers move closer, slowly. The way you approach something you are afraid will dissolve if you blink. It does not dissolve. They are starving. They are soaked. They are covered in bites and barely able to stand. But they are alive, all 4 of them. And in the arms of the 13-year-old is the baby, Kristen, the 1-year-old who turned one out here in the dark, breathing, blinking, alive. A searcher gets the words out, and they travel from radio to radio and then to a country that had stopped letting itself believe. Encontrados. Found. Helicopters carry them out to Bogota, to a military hospital, to doctors and an entire nation weeping at once. And in the days that follow, as the questions come, the answer to the impossible finally arrives. And it is not the answer anyone expected. They did not survive because they were lucky. They survived because of her. 40 days. A jungle that loses soldiers. A baby that should not have lasted a week. And the reason all 4 walked out is a 13-year-old Huitoto girl who knew which fruit was safe, where water ran, how to build a roof of leaves, and how to keep an infant alive on water and will when the formula was long gone. The knowledge her people had carried for centuries, the kind no satellite holds and no academy teaches, turned out to be worth more than 150 soldiers and a fleet of helicopters. And now look back at everything that came before, because the whole story rearranges itself. The adults died, the aircraft failed, the satellites saw nothing. 150 soldiers and 70 trackers passed within 100 meters and missed them. The search lit clearings and dropped a grandmother's voice from the sky and still couldn't reach them. The country found them and lost them and nearly buried them. Every system, every machine, every institution faltered. The one person nobody was counting on, the small, poor, indigenous girl any stranger would have written off as the most helpless victim on that plane, was the most capable human being in the entire story. Her ordinariness was the superpower. Being underestimated was the disguise. And think about what that should do to the way you measure people. The whole world has a reflection about who the survivor in a disaster will be. The strongest, the richest, the best equipped, the one with the gear and the training and the satellite phone. This story takes that reflex and quietly tears it up. The survivor was a child with no gear, no phone, no power, and no adult, who happened to be carrying the one thing that mattered, knowledge handed down through her people, and a will that would not bend. The doctors who received them in Bogota said the children were dehydrated and starving but alive, and that on its own should have been impossible. It was not luck that made it possible. It was her. But the triumph is not clean, and it shouldn't be. It cost a mother who spent her last hours making sure her children would walk away from the place she would not. And it cost Wilson, the dog who gave the search its best lead, who may have walked beside 4 frightened children through their darkest nights, was never found. They searched for him after they saved the children. They gave him a medal. They built him monuments. The jungle never gave him back. So that is the price of the miracle. A mother who said live and meant it. A dog who never came home. Here is what to keep long after the headlines fade. When the engines die and the adults are gone and every system built to save you fails, the thing that survives is older than all of it. A child's knowledge of her own land, and a child's refusal to put the baby down. Leslie walked out of the deadliest jungle on earth with her little sister, her little brother, and a 1-year-old in her arms. She never let go. And if this story left you with that question in your chest, how far can a human being go when the world has already counted them out? Then the next one belongs to the frozen edge of the map. A pilot vanishes into the Canadian Arctic, crashes onto a lake no one can find, and wakes up with no radio, no beacon, no rescue signal, and a cold so brutal it turns survival into a countdown. For nearly 2 months, search planes miss him, hope collapses at home, and the wilderness waits for him to stop fighting. But he does not. What happened out there became one of the most impossible survival records ever told. The story of Robert Gauci, the bush pilot people would come to call the man who wouldn't die. Watch that next, because some people survive the impossible once and some refuse to die long after the world has already buried them.